It is time to wrap up our 7-movie Halloween month with, of course, another Halloween movie. As today we are going to look at Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, released in 1995. And oh boy, buddy, does this movie suck. This was the last film of the original Halloween timeline, and boy did it go out with a whimper. Released 6 years after Halloween 5 and taking place 6 years after Halloween 5, Michael resurfaces again in this film. But this time he's not going after Jamie Lloyd, he's going after Jamie Lloyd's child. And the only thing standing in the way between Michael and the child is some of Laurie Strode's adoptive relatives, and also Tommy Doyle, one of the kids that survived Michael in Halloween 1. And of course that incredibly stupid Man in Black storyline implemented in Halloween 5 returns here, and I promise you, it's even dumber. The only returning actor from Halloween 5 is Donald Pleasance once again as Dr. Sam Loomis. Unfortunately, this film was released in September of 95, and Pleasance actually passed away earlier in the year, in February of 95. New faces for this one include Marianne Hagen, Mitch Ryan, Devin Gardner, J.C. Brandy, Keith Bogart, Mariah O'Brien, Ken Darby, Bradford English, and Paul Rudd in his second ever film role. Film had a budget of $5 million, which was slightly less than Halloween 5, but did make $15 million, a little bit more than Halloween 5's $11.5. And much like with the previous film, the only thing positive most people took from this was Donald Pleasance's performance. Critics destroyed everything else, focusing on the weak story, weak ending, weak portrayal of Michael, another shitty Michael mask, and also Paul Rudd's shitty performance. That might surprise some of you, but again, this was his second ever film, and he was still very much coming into his own as an actor. I can unfortunately confirm that he was not good in this movie. And again, this film was so bad it ended this current storyline. Halloween H2O, released in 1998, completely nixed the whole Jamie Lloyd storyline, instead serving as a direct sequel to Halloween 2. But how bad was it? Well, let's find out right now as we look at Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, released in 1995. But one more thing before we get started. I've more than likely already specified this in the title of the video, but this is the theatrical cut. Why is that important? Well, that's because the theatrical cut was not the original cut. The original cut, which is now known as the producer's cut, was the cut screened for test audiences, which resulted in reshoots and the film we have now. That version was publicly released finally in 2013 and is very different. Very different. Whole different ending, whole bunch of stuff. To be honest, I'm probably gonna need to do just a whole separate review for that. I would include it with this, but I'm running out of time as I'm making this, so at a later date we'll probably look at the producer's cut, but for now, just the theatrical version. So our film begins with a woman screaming, being led through some sort of corridor. Turns out this woman is a 15-year-old Jamie Lloyd, who is now pregnant and about to give birth. She does give birth, but her and her baby have been taken hostage by the Man in Black cult. And a Man in Black proceeds to put his symbol, which we saw in the previous film, onto the child. A nurse, however, brings the child back to Jamie and helps her escape the facility she's in. As Jamie gets away, however, here's Michael in another shitty mask that's not quite as bad as the Halloween 5 mask, but it's still not great, and he quickly kills that nurse. Jamie then gets in some dude's truck, and before he can protest too much, he's killed by Michael, and Jamie drives away. We then go to the old Myers house, which apparently has now been bought by the Strode family. A 6-year-old named Danny wakes up screaming in his room, seeing the Man in Black taunting him to kill. He's reassured, however, and sent back to sleep by his mother, Cara. Across the street from Cara lives Tommy Doyle, who survived the original Haddonfield attacks all those years ago. Elsewhere, we see a now retired Dr. Loomis, who is visited by his friend Dr. Wynn, who now runs the Smith's Grove Sanitarium. The Smith's Grove Sanitarium, of course, being where Michael Myers was housed before he broke out. Jamie, meanwhile, arrives at an abandoned bus depot and calls into a radio show begging for help from Dr. Loomis. Loomis and Wynn both hear her on the radio, as does Tommy. Jamie takes her child down to the restroom to clean him up before Michael arrives, but she's able to escape out a window. She's back in the truck she stole again, but Michael has stolen a van and runs her off the road into a farm. Michael ends up cornering Jamie in a barn and kills her with some farming equipment. Yeah, great, the main character from the previous 2 movies just killed in some random fodder in the first 20 minutes of this film. That's great. Michael goes back to the pickup truck to get the baby, but the baby ain't there. It's the next day at the old Myers house and it's Halloween, and we get a little more info on the Strode family living there. Kara is actually in college alongside her brother Tim, and they live with their parents, John and Deborah. Her mother is nice, but her father is not, as he hates Kara and even ends up backhanding her. This situation is then quickly diffused by Danny, who points a knife at John. Elsewhere, Dr. Wynn has coerced Dr. Loomis back to Smith's Grove. Also elsewhere, Tommy is replaying Jamie's call on the radio and is able to trace where Jamie's call came from. Tommy goes to the bus depot where he sees a trail of Jamie's blood, which somehow nobody noticed till now, and goes to the bathroom where he finds the child, which again, somehow nobody noticed. Loomis and Wynn then go to the site of Jamie's death where they see that Man in Black symbol burned into some hay barrels, and Loomis is like, oh, that's Michael's mark. No, it fucking isn't. Back at Haddonfield College, Tim and his girlfriend Beth are planning a Halloween party, while Kara is just a little bit concerned over a drawing she found from Danny. Tommy has gone to the hospital meanwhile to take the baby there, but then he sees Dr. Loomis and is like, oh, this is Jamie's baby, meet me tonight, and then just keeps the kid. Back at the Myers house, it looks like Michael has arrived and is stalking Deborah. Dr. Loomis also arrives at the house to warn Deborah of the history of the house. Tommy brings the child back to his room and wipes the blood mark off him, naming him Stephen. The boarding house he lives at is also owned by a woman named Miss Blankenship, who is thought to be completely deaf. Tommy rightly figures that Michael's going to come after the Strode family, he already has, and he meets Danny outside. Speaking of which, Deborah calls John on the phone, telling him that she's leaving because he knew about Michael and the history the whole time. That's how he was able to get the house for so cheap. Deborah's packing a bag and trying to leave, but she finally sees Michael stalking her and goes to flee. However, as she's trying to make her way through her own laundry, she comes face to face with Michael and an axe, and that's the end of Deborah. Kara then comes home and has to go in for the back because the front door is locked, but apparently Michael has already cleaned up. She then goes up to Danny's room where Tommy and Stephen are there with him, and Tommy tells her the history of the house. And since they're not safe there, they go with Tommy across the street. Upon immediately getting there, however, Danny sees Michael at his house out the window. Tommy has also figured out about the Man in Black symbol. Turns out it's a runic symbol called the Thorn. The story of the Thorn is some old folktale about how a child cleansed his entire family by killing them to save the rest of the town. It also appears as a constellation in the sky, but only on Halloween. Downstairs, Danny is now talking to Miss Blankenship, and Miss Blankenship reveals to Danny and to Kara that before Michael went nuts, he started hearing a voice in his head. So yes, the whole storyline now is that Michael was controlled by wizards. Fucking great. Meanwhile, John arrives home completely plastered, finding Deborah has actually left, and then his power goes out. He goes down to the laundry room to try to fix it, but finds Deborah's blood-stained clothes in the laundry. He's then attacked by Michael, who shoves him into a wall, electrocuting him until he explodes. Unaware of all this, Tim arrives back home with Beth in tow, and they go upstairs to have sex. Tommy, meanwhile, goes out to meet up with Dr. Loomis, and they make their way back to his house. Back at the Myers house, however, Tim is taking a shower before he gets his throat slit by Michael, but Michael was kind enough to give him a towel first. Across the street, using Tommy's camera, Kara is able to see Michael murdering Beth as well. And to make matters worse, Danny, for whatever reason, is in a trance and has gone into the house on his own accord. Kara, of course, follows him in there, grabbing a fire poker as she goes upstairs. She finds Tim and Beth's dead bodies before finding her son, and also Michael. Danny escapes downstairs, and Kara lures Michael into a hallway where she hits him in the back of the head with the fire poker, sending him down the stairs and knocking him out. Her and Danny are able to escape for the front door just as Michael gets up, and then Dr. Loomis and Tommy arrive back at his place and notice that Steven is gone. They all regroup at the boarding house, but somebody again draws Danny into the other room, and it's the Man in Black. It turns out the Man in Black is the only other person who could have known about Steven's whereabouts. It's Wynn. His cronies then show up and attack everybody while Kara escapes upstairs without her son. She then finds Miss Blankenship, who is holding Steven and is also one of the cronies, so Kara jumps out the fucking window. A little bit later, Dr. Loomis and Tommy wake up having been drugged, and Steven, Danny, and Kara were kidnapped by the cult. Turns out they took them to Smith's Grove, where they have Kara in a padded cell. Loomis and Tommy both go there, and Tommy sets off to try to find Kara. Loomis, meanwhile, has a gun and confronts Dr. Wynn and asks him why he's doing this. Wynn says they've been studying pure evil and how to control it, Michael being their main test subject. It's implied that Steven was actually fertilized into Jamie using Michael's DNA, which is fucking gross. And I guess the plan is to use Steven as a way to continue Michael's bloodline. He asks Loomis to join him, but Loomis is like, nah, so he promptly gets knocked out from behind. Meanwhile, Tommy has located Kara just as Michael has located him. They break free just in time and make their way throughout the facility away from Michael. They then find an operation room where doctors are preparing to operate on somebody. Steven, I guess? Danny's in there too. However, Michael then shows up and slaughters all of the surgeons because he feels like it, I guess. Fair warning, by the way, for anyone looking to see this film, this scene is massive seizure-y. Like one of the most seizure-y scenes I've ever seen in my life. While Michael's distracted with murdering, they get Steven and Danny back and run away down a hallway. They're cornered by Michael in a room where Tommy feigns giving him Steven. It was a ruse, however, so that Tommy could inject Michael with some corrosive liquid. Michael tosses Tommy to the side and Kara hits him in the head with a pipe a bunch of times, but it doesn't quite work as Michael chokes her out. Michael then almost gets to Danny, who has Steven, but Tommy injects him with more corrosive liquid and then beats him unconscious with a pipe. Dr. Loomis then saves Kara, Danny, and Steven, while Tommy continues to beat Michael. We then smash cut to everybody in a car except for Dr. Loomis, asking Loomis to come with them, but Loomis is like, no, I got some business here. We then see a shot of Michael's mask lying alone on the lab floor, with Loomis screaming in the background, and that's the end of the fucking film. I'll tell you what, I need to do this fucking producer's cut at some point, because don't get me wrong, the producer's cut is not good either, but at least it has a real ending. It's not a good ending, but at least it has one. So yeah, now it's time for our Halloween big board, whoop-de-doo. And I mean, there's not really much to say here, is there, brothers? If you thought that it couldn't get worse than Halloween 5, guess what? It did. This was complete dog shit. So here's our new rankings. Halloween, number 1, Halloween 2, number 2, Halloween 4, number 3, Halloween 3, number 4, Halloween 5, number 5, and Halloween 6, number 6. Ooh, where do I start with this? I mean, everything about this film was just so nonsensical. I mean, first of all, my biggest gripe with this, and this is not, you know, if anything, this is just made worse by the producer's cut when we get to that, but Michael Myers, you know, who's supposed to be the unstoppable killer, turns out this whole time was just a little bitch. That's Michael's entire arc. He was a little bitch boy controlled by some man in black, whatever the fuck, the entire time. That's his whole arc. He's a little controlled bitch boy. Whoop-de-doo. Good fucking job with that. And they could have at least tried to make sense out of some of the stuff from the original cut. Like, the ending, it just ended. That was it. It was just a scream. When we go over the producer's cut, you'll understand why it was screaming. Maybe I'll try to do this next month, because I feel like I really need to talk about this producer's cut. Again, it's not good, the producer's cut is, but it's better than this. I promise you it's better than this. The producer's cut may even make it over Halloween 5. Maybe I'll have to rank the producer's cut separately on the big board, because it's better than this, although it's still not good, because at least it has a proper ending and it fills out some holes a little bit. But this theatrical version, this thing that was in theaters, people paid money to see this and see that ending. Holy shit. Like, this is just unexcusably bad. It almost feels like a parody of a Halloween movie. It was up its own ass, which again also does not change in the producer's cut, but it was just, it just feels like a weenie movie, you know? It's like, it's something you'll watch and it's like, oh, this was made by weenies, you know? With the runic symbols and the fucking, oh, yeah, Michael's really controlled by the man in black. Shut the fuck up. Just let Michael kill people. There wasn't even any good kills in this movie, either. Like, I can't think of a single good kill in this movie. If you're watching it for that, it's like, oh, well, maybe Michael kills some people in some creative ways. No, he doesn't. It's just a bunch of shit kills, and it's a shit film. And fuck me, I'm done talking about it. But again, I just promised to do the producer's cut, so I guess I'm going to talk about it again. Maybe, you know, maybe we'll do that next week. Maybe we'll do that next week. We'll go over this film again next week. We will watch the producer's cut next week. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I've decided. I've just decided right here on the spot. Next week on the channel, we are going to go over the producer's cut of this shitty film, and we're going to see what fills out. But for now, that is it for the shitty theatrical cut, and if you want to watch this, please don't. It sucks. But, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you enjoyed my Halloween month. I certainly did. We got 7 reviews out, which is the most ever for the channel. Technically, this is coming out the day after another review. It wasn't supposed to be that way, but I had some delay with the Scream 6 review due to copyright, so it was released yesterday instead of 2 days before. So that was the only thing that didn't go according to plan. But other than that, everything else did. I don't know how many reviews there will be in November. I wasn't even planning on initially doing a review next week. But now I gotta go over this stupid-ass producer's cut, because we gotta get more on it. So yes, next Sunday, if less than a week, next Sunday, we will go over this dumb producer's cut. But that, for now, is it for my look back at Halloween 6. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave it a like. If you didn't like it, don't. If you want to follow any of my social media links, they're all in the video description down below, as well as the names of all my Patrons. Thank you to my Patrons for supporting me and my channel. I appreciate you guys. With all that being said, though, my name is Noah Taft. This has been my look back of the shitty theatrical cut of Halloween 6, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.